just ones I'd like to, not die in an episode of this. Great. Absolutely wonderful. Let's gather around the campfire. Last time, on The Legend of Grey, I collected buttloads of materials, made some friends, and defeated a giant tree. I may or may not have died a lot in the process, but either way, one thing was for sure now. Playtime was over, and it was time to get serious before adventuring on. This world needs a hero. The forces of evil are constantly moving against it, and the bosses of the land must be stopped. Bone Mass is up next on the chopping block, and I'm the only one who can beat him. It's time to take the fight to the swamp. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Valheim. In between episodes, I took the liberty of grinding some resources and stocking up on some of the important items, such as stones, the various types of wood, plenty of hides from different beasts, as well as some various foods, both raw and cooked, as well as berries, mushrooms, honey, etc., etc. Now today's episode has two goals, both of which lie inside this storage chest. However, before I can begin either one of those goals, I need to beef up my base a bit. Now that I've beaten the Elder, any raids that come my way have a chance of being fairly deadly, not only to me, but also my new friends as well. And well, I like to keep them alive. So after tidying up the area around my house and removing some of the rocks and changing some of the elevation, it was time to get to work. I made sure to remove some of the land around the back of the boar pen to limit access points, and then I began placing some defensive walls around the areas where the pests can easily get to my boars and to my house. These walls weren't going to stop a troll or large amounts of enemies indefinitely, but it would slow them down and give me time to grab their aggro and take them away from the base. With that completed, I put in some front doors, as well as some lighting. Feeling a lot better about my base protection, I turned my attention to goal 1 of the episode, finding the trader. Haldor the trader is found in the Black Forest biomes, but can be a bit elusive to find a lot of the time. Taking my portal back to the Elder, my plan was to explore the Black Forest around here while looking out for dungeons in the nearby swamp biome, killing 2 birds with 1 stone again. Now these swamp dungeons will be extremely important for progression in the future, so hopefully I find a few. There's one right now! I quickly marked it down on my map and continued my exploration, and it wasn't long before I caught a glimpse of a second dungeon. Soon after, I ran into my first enemies from the swamp biome, Draugr. Now, Draugr are a little bit like stronger skeletons in the game. One of them is easy to take down. However, when they come at you in hordes, some of them wielding bows, it can be very dangerous. Luckily, I dispatched of these guys quite easily and carried on. A few moments later, a symbol popped up on my map. I had finally found Haldor, and so I quickly rushed over to him to say hi before building a portal nearby for easy access later on. That didn't take long at all. Now this presented a problem. I only had 1 portal at home, but 2 different locations in the world to teleport to. When short on supplies, I tend to use my house portal as a hub of sorts, changing the name as necessary. But in this case I had enough materials, and so I moved my house portal outside and created another one for the trader. I then gathered up my valuables and cash to purchase a few items from him. And after selling everything I had 1,587 coins to work with. And the first thing on my shopping list was Megingzord, a belt that provides a 50% carry capacity increase when worn, kinda like steroids. I also purchased a Thunderstone, which would come in handy later, and a fishing rod with plenty of bait. I then headed home and prepared for the major goal of this episode, planting carrots in my yard. just kidding. Time to head into the swamp biome for the first time. And so I made a third portal named Dungeon, which would be the sister to my mobile portal setup in the swamp. Finally, it was time to head into the swamp, and I was almost immediately confronted with a nuisance. A blob. While not very strong, they can poison you, which deals massive damage over time. Another reason to love the swamp. Oh hey! Here's a solid idea. Let's compare the pros and cons of the swamp biome as I progress through it. Starting with the cons, it's always raining, so you're always wet, even when you're not going through the watery parts. The blobs and the leeches poison you. Oh, did I mention the leeches before this? Yeah, there are giant leeches here. The draugrs aren't too bad on their own, but when combined with other mobs or in large amounts, you might as well give up half the time. There are super blobs, which are guaranteed to wreck your day if they poison you. Just watch how quickly my health evaporates here while I just try to stay alive. Oh man, okay, this is going to be super close. I've just got to keep away from this thing. If it doesn't poison me again, I should be alright. I don't think I'm going to be alright. You know, just once I'd like to, not die in an episode of this. Great. Absolutely wonderful. With a walk of shame complete and the super blob eventually killed, it was time to enter my first dungeon. My plan here was to go through one dungeon this episode and get the basics of the Iron Age smelting back home before doing a deep dive for the next episode. I set up my mobile portal in a chest and then I went through it to do something smart. I made a cauldron and some poison resistance mead base. The meads in this game work the same as potions in most other games. Unfortunately, this mead base would need to be brewed into the actual mead. So I made a fermenter and began that brewing process, which would take several in-game days. With that, it was time to enter the dungeon. Alright, first swap dungeon of the game, let's go! A couple of mushrooms to start off with, great. Another mushroom and a dead end, okay. More mushrooms and another dead end. Great. Doing well so far. Another direction here. And you've got to be kidding me. Is that actually another dead end? Oh my gosh, this must be a joke, right? You've got to be kidding me. Is that it? Is that all there is in this dungeon? Come on. Yeah, this game basically trolled me hard. In over 500 hours of Valheim experience, I have never seen that happen. Time to chalk up another con on the list, the Abomination. Yeah, these guys hide as tree stumps in the game until you walk by, and then they just pop out, causing a huge ruckus. Killing them drops some great looking armor, but I'm not prepared for these guys at all yet. Luckily there was another dungeon nearby, so I ran in for some cover and saw immediately that this dungeon was much, much larger. These piles here are exactly what I was looking for. Through these, I can get scrap iron, which can be smelted into iron bars. I was going to need an absurd amount of them to max my gear out for bone mass. Throughout these dungeons, there are normally plenty of these scrap piles, which offer a range of drops. There are also many chests and treasures located in the different rooms, and there are, of course, enemies trying to kill you. Now, in my opinion, poison damage is the biggest threat in these dungeons, so I was trying to avoid that at all costs until my mead was finally finished brewing. However, there is one more threat that can cause problems. Spawners. Draugr spawners normally spawn archer or axe-wielding draugrs, but can also spawn draugr elites, which would probably kill me in 2 hits if I was lucky at this point. In this particular dungeon, I didn't run into any of them, but this was only the second dungeon of many to be explored in the future. With all the items I could get my hands on in this dungeon collected, it was time to take the portal home. I had accomplished what I set out to do, and in total I had gotten just over 120 scrap iron, which should be a good start on gearing up and getting better tools and such. Now, while I'm smelting these materials up, I'd like to make an announcement. I'm currently working on starting up a Valheim server for myself and viewers of the channel. This server will be open to anyone and everyone who wants to join it. The details are still being worked out, so if you have any ideas, definitely let me know. I've updated the Grayson Only Knows Discord with a Valheim section, where all further information about the server will be located. So join today using the link in the description below if you're interested. The plan is for the server to be up and running in the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for an announcement about that as well. Take a look at all these boars. Those are some fine boars, if I do say so myself. Now in the last video I asked for name suggestions for my boars, and you guys delivered. The most liked comments were from Tony and Leon, both with 5. So I decided to name the original 2 boars after Leon's suggestions, Breakfast and Dinner. However, I had 11 name suggestions in total and 11 boars in my pen, which is the maximum amount I can have with this amount of space. So I decided to just take all of the names. Here we have Bacon and Sausage. Next up, Hambone and Squealer. Borbra and Boris. Baron and Kaiser. And last, but certainly not least, Chris P. The whole name wouldn't fit, so I felt this was good enough. Thank you all so much for all the suggestions. With that, I was ready to end the episode, but Odin had other plans for me. My first raid. Remember what I said about Draugrs only being dangerous in groups with other mobs? Well, that's exactly what I had here. Draugrs, skeletons, more Draugrs, more skeletons. I was able to take out a few in the beginning, but as more and more spawned in and grouped up, I was having difficulty getting my hits in. A couple of shots and I could easily fall victim to them, and so I was forced to do the only thing I could to ensure my survival. Camp like a loser. This reminds me of my time playing Black Ops. After a bravely fought battle, I was ready to wind down for a bit. So that's everything for this episode, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're not already. Anyone interested in joining my Valheim server, consider joining the Discord so you can stay up to date. Thank you, and goodbye.